welcome back to another episode of Wren's Wasteland Camp Reviews / Dumpster Fires of the Commonwealth. Sorry about the lighting. We're down here at Harper's Ferry at my camp that is, well, it's either wonderfully well lit, foggy, or kinda eh. And right now we're in a kinda foggy stage. So, anyway. There's a video of this camp up on my channel. You can check it out there if you want to check it out. It spans the upper and lower portion of this bridge that we're standing on. The reason why I brought you here is this. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. So, in this shelter, which that is a shelter instance if you didn't know, I am going to show you my own personal folly, which I will show you right now as soon as it populates in. There we go. Alright, so, as you know, there are build challenges that require you to build a certain amount of walls and things like that in a shelter. So I recommend building something like this if you can. But, in this shelter I have a large selection of all of the prefabs in the game. By large, I mean like I'm missing like maybe 2 or 3 at the most. And those are newer ones. So, now, over my time playing this, I've unlocked some through scoreboards, and I've unlocked some through challenges, and I've unlocked some through events, and everybody's done that kind of stuff that's been here for a while. Then there are also the ones that you buy, where you buy a certain DLC download from the Atomic Shop, or from Steam, or from Bethesda Net back in the day, and you'll get things like, you know, the Brotherhood of Steel Tower here, or, you know, just different things. To be honest, there's too many of them to tell. I set up a boundary in this area using the... Let me see if I can... Dang it. To be honest, I'm having a problem thinking of the word for these things, but I should know it. It is something that... Billboards. There you go. Duh. Took a minute. Brain just didn't want to load that information for some reason. Alright. So, I set up a boundary on the edges of this place using the billboards so I'd have a rough idea of the general scope. You could technically build an entire city in here if you wanted to without too much of an issue. There's very few building restrictions, as anyone knows, on the inside of your vaults. The major one being that you can't use plants and you can't use water or anything that basically generates a resource, which kind of sucks. Because, in all honesty, this is like the perfect place for that kind of thing. Now, the reason why I brought you here is whenever I do a camp review, I tend to say, okay, so I give 1 point for a bathroom. That means anything with a toilet in it, including an outhouse. And whenever I'm talking about prefabs, I mean any one of these, including that stupid sign down there, by the way. I will give you a point for using, or the silo over there by the barn. There are certain things in here that I haven't placed in the entirety of my playing of this game. The first 2 prefabs that I bought were these 2 right here. They're the only 2 that I still use relatively regularly in any of my builds, to be honest. Everything else in here, I mean, except for the cargo containers, and of course the bridge pieces, I rarely use at all. I mean, I don't even use the tents. I do on occasion use these truck beds and things like that. And this thing is new, and I'll be honest, I think I've used it maybe once in something that I didn't even bother to record, or something that I tore down shortly thereafter because it wasn't really, I don't know, I just didn't like it. I don't know how else to put it. I used to use this one all the time whenever vendors reset, whenever you moved them. I would put my vendors in this, set it up as a vendor room, and then whenever I would move camps before we had multiple slots, your vendors would reset each time you place them down. So I would always use a prefab as a house for my vendors so that I didn't have to deal with a reset because I didn't want to have to deal with repricing everything and putting it back in my vendors at the time. This thing is the least used one out of any of the things that I bought. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this, well, I take that back. That is not the least used one. This one here is the least used one. I have never actively used this in any build of any kind whatsoever. And the reason being for that is because, I'll be honest, it's kind of a niche. Unless I was building some type of entertainment zone for people to play in, I don't honestly think I'd ever use this. That being said, with the bowling alley now being out, you could use that, the bowling alley, maybe the pirate ship, and possibly something like the pancake house, or definitely little, like, Nuka World trucks, and maybe another building that you could pick out and do a really cool looking, like, entertainment zone if you did it right. But, yeah, some of these will probably never get used. Some of them are just, to be honest, this is kind of me recording my own stupidity because some of these things I just never should have bought. But in all honesty, some of them you didn't have a choice. In order to get the build set that came with it or the piece of gear that came with it that you actually wanted, you had to buy everything. You didn't have the choice of spending, like, oh, look, you can buy that for 600 atoms, and then here you go. Here's your extra building you want. No, no. Bethesda's getting a little better about that, but over the course of this game, they have forced you to buy a lot of crap that you don't honestly use or need or want. I mean, it would be different if, like, this wasn't just a trailer, but was also a build tile set where you could take it apart and rebuild it, reshape it, make this a whole absolutely new building versus just this blown out piece of garbage. I mean, this one I use in a lot of builds because it makes a really nice vendor area. It also makes a good drug den, to be honest. I mean, Breaking Bad being what it is. Now, I have a lot of friends that really like trains and they think these things are awesome. I personally am not that big a fan, but I get, you want a different area to build in, you want something that looks a little different. You got two train cars, they're not that bad. The only problem with them is they're sitting on these stupid foundations here. If they'd have at least put them on train wheels, or better yet, on little train wheels with a piece of track underneath it, and maybe a small foundation that you could sink into the ground, that would have been like a billion times better than what they've done with these things, because right now they look like they've just been set off in somebody's yard. Which I guess technically they have, if you want to get down to it. The mausoleum is one of those things that's very niche, and since uh, Halloween is coming up, I expect to see a lot of these things getting used at various points. I do think it's funny that they managed to hide, like, you build this building and it looks really cool, and then you stick a power adapter off the side of it. I mean, given how these things are built, you could literally put that down at the bottom and set it up so somebody could cover it with a bush and nobody would ever complain. Hell, probably nobody would ever see it. But, or you can attach your own power to it. There are certain ones that, like, it just floors me that they bothered to put power connectors to them. Like, this one here doesn't have one. It's one of the first ones. The coolest feature about it is that light, in my opinion, because it's a free light in your camp that you don't have to worry about. But, yeah, I mean, there's just, I don't know how to put it other than, there is so much stuff in this game that you can acquire, including all of this crap. And you will never use it this is the most complete build that I've ever done with it. And the problem with this one is some of the items that I have in my inventory that I don't have on display here have the same IDs built into them in game. So, like, when it says you can only place one of this, something else has the same ID code, so I can't place the second one. Like, there's a silver one of these trailers. This one over here is the silver one right here, technically. And there's a black one that I don't have on this character yet. So there's 4 of them at least. And there's probably going to be more of them because they just tend to poop these things out. If they would have given us these and equipped them with the animation where they could be closed up, it would be so cool. But nope, can't do that. Or at least give us a closed up version of it, like it was being hauled behind the truck. Because there is one in game, you can see it down by Welch. It's just past Welch, near the camping area between Welch and it's on a road. Beckley, to be honest, it's in that area. Um, but you can see one of these things folded up like it's being towed, and then they have one in game where it's at the airport, and you can see it, you know, fully decorated out. The problem with it is that the decorating in these things is always kind of hyper problematic. There's a lot of times where you have to blueprint your entire furniture setup that you want to put in there. Like if you're building a bedroom, you'd put a carpet, a bed, to your table, maybe some other stuff, and you'd have to place it on the interior because if you don't do it right, the thing isn't nav mesh properly and it just pops up to the top of the damn roof, especially on certain angles of it. So yeah, for all that these things save you in time, they can be a lot more work as well, and I get that. That's the reason why I give you 2 points if you use one whenever I do a review, but I wanted to show you what I'm looking at whenever I look for these things. I mean, this one here, for instance, there's also an airplane version of it. Yeah, there's an airplane version and there's uh, a railway version of it, technically, I guess, with subway cars and stuff from the pit. But, yeah, you just don't get a lot of... I mean, there's enough here that you could do a really awesome Brotherhood of Steel build right there. That's pretty much all you need right there in that little section. You could even throw in one of the glass domes and use it as a hydroponics for them. As I said over here, you could do an entertainment district that would be really cool for an area. But it involves you thinking about how you're building and planning out your builds a little better. You could do a farm using the barn over here and the various accoutrements that go with it, like the silo and the maybe even the meat um, shop, the butcher shop over here could be used as well. I mean, and definitely you know, if you're gonna do a farm, you might as well go ahead and do the treehouse, because it's just the way it should be. And also, the other thing you'd want to do if you were doing a farm would be to grab one of the billboards and put it on the back of this thing back here as tight as you could, so that it looks like it's, you know, sort of painted or at least attached to it. Because a lot of farmers actually, especially in rural areas that face the interstates, um, and even in areas where the roads are, you know, running near their barns, have leased out their barns to ad agencies so they could, you know, slap a logo on the side of it. Everything from a soda ad to McDonald's to, in some areas, Snuff and Dip are still popular ads. These trailers and tents over here, I would say use these with that right there. The Rangers observation thing, and make yourself a little camp. There are a large variety of builds you can do with all of the stuff in here. I recommend playing with any of the stuff that you personally have and seeing what you can come up with. Even if it's just incorporating something like this into a build so that you don't have to build it again as a defensive station or as a cooking station or a power room or something like that. Just we all have these things, and they seldom get used in our builds, especially uh, new players almost always tend to get at least one or two of these things, either through quests, events, or by happenstance they buy them in the atomic shop. I recommend if you're going to buy one of the smaller ones and then see how often you use it. If the other ones tickle your fancy and you absolutely have to have them, go back and get them once you know that you're going to use them or you have a plan for them. These things cost an exorbitant amount of money if you really think about it. Like if each one of these things is, let's just go with $10. There's well over $100 in crap sitting here. So, and it's stuff that hardly ever gets used by me, and I build all the damn time. So, yeah, try incorporating this stuff into your builds, and well, I hope things are working out for you. Have a good day and enjoy your game. This has been Ren for Ren's Wasteland Camp Reviews. This is just public service announcement, I suppose, to try and get people motivated to use these things in their camps. Have fun.